नमस्कार मंडळी. आज आहे सोमवार आणि सोमवार संध्याकाळी 7:30 वाजता मराठी मिसळचा एक तडकेदार कार्यक्रम घेऊन मी नेहमी आपल्यासोबत असतो आणि माझ्यासोबत असते माझी सहचारिणी प्रीती. वेलकम टू द शो.
नमस्कार.
नमस्कार. अ, प्रीती, आज आपण एका वेगळ्या विषयावरती बोलणार आहोत, की जो आपल्या सर्वांच्या खिशाला चाट देणारा आहे. नॉर्मली चाट वगैरे म्हटलं की भेळ पाणीपुरी आठवते, पण ही चाट वेगळी असणार आहे. पण त्यापूर्वी आज आपण जरा ओमिक्रॉनचे फिगर्स आहेत त्याच्याकडे लक्ष देऊया.
येस.
गेल्या आठवडाभर आय थिंक इफ यू कॅन रॅटल आउट व्हॉट आर द नंबर्स, देन इट विल बी ग्रेट.
या डेफिनेटली. सो आज आपले नंबर्स जे आलेले ते 17,522 केसेस दॅट हॅव कम. कीपिंग इन माइंड जो आपला मागच्या 2-3 दिवसाआधी जे आपल्याला केसेसमध्ये ड्रॉप बघितलेला आहे. सो मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ हेल्थनी एक ॲडवायझरी दिलेली की जस्ट बिकॉज केसेस ड्रॉप होत आहेत त्याचा अर्थ असा नाही आहे की देर आर नॉट दॅट मेनी ओमिक्रॉन केसेस इन द कम्युनिटी. इनफॅक्ट आता मागच्या 2 दिवसापासून मिनिस्ट्रीने हे सुरुवात केलंय की जेव्हा ते केसेस रिलीज करतात तेव्हा ते 7 दिवसाचा रोलिंग ॲव्हरेज पण देतात कम्युनिटी केसेसचा. सो आजचा जर बघितला तो इज द 7-day rolling average is 17,921, which is up from 17272 from yesterday. आणि मिनिस्ट्रीने हे सांगितलंय की हे केसेसचे फ्लक्च्युएशन होईलच. अँड वन ऑफ द मेन रिझन्स फॉर द फ्लक्च्युएशन इज की लाईक खूप लोक, there are 2-3 main reasons, but one of the main reasons is that a lot of people are doing the RAT test, they're doing the rapid antigen tests at home and they are not necessarily reporting them. की जरी जो पॉझिटिव्ह असेल नेगेटिव्ह असेल सो तो रिपोर्ट पोहोचत नाही आहे मिनिस्ट्रीपर्यंत. सो देर इज ऑब्व्हियसली तो डिस्क्रिपन्सी आहे तिकडे. आणि अनदर रिझन जो मिनिस्ट्रीने दिलेला आहे की हे जे अंडर 12चे जे केसेस आहेत दोज वन्स नीड टू बी रिपोर्टेड बाय फोन. आता तुमचा आणि माझा जो केस असेल बिकॉज आपण माय कोविडमध्ये रजिस्टर्ड आहोत आणि आपण बूस्टर घेतलेला आहे आणि आपले बाकीचे 2 वॅक्सिन्स पण घेतलेले आहेत. सो वी हॅव अन इझी वे ऑफ रिपोर्टिंग इट वाया माय कोविड. पण जे पण बिलो 12 आहेत सो मोस्ट ऑफ देम आर नीड टू बी रिपोर्टेड बाय फोन आणि म्हणून ते कदाचित होत नाही आहे. सो मिनिस्ट्रीने हे वॉर्निंग दिली आहे की असं फ्लक्च्युएशन होतच राहील, बट पीपल स्टील नीड टू बी केअरफुल अबाउट जेव्हा ते बाहेर जातात, ग्रुपमध्ये जातात, मास्क युजेज आणि आपलं जे सगळे सेफ्टी पॅरामीटर्स होते आपल्यासाठी टू कीप अस सेफ फ्रॉम कोविड नीड टू ऑब्व्हियसली बी मेंटेन्ड. देर हॅव बीन कॉन्व्हर्सेशन्स बाय एक्सपर्ट्स आणि मॉडलर्स ज्यांनी सांगितलं की मे बी ऑकलंडचा पीक जवळ येतोय, बट दॅट इज नॉट समथिंग दॅट इज कन्फर्म्ड. सो हॅव्हिंग सेड दॅट हे आपले जे मागचे थोडे नंबर्स आहेत 15,000 पासून, म्हणजे जेव्हा तो 21, आय थिंक द बिगेस्ट रिलीफ दॅट मे बी आय हॅड ऑल्सो गॉट आणि खूप लोकांचं झालं असेल हे, जे 22 आणि 23,000 वरनं डायरेक्ट 15,000 वर पोहोचलेलं आणि मग 17,000 वर पोहोचलेलं. आपल्याला सगळ्यांना वाटलेलं की अच्छा ओके द पीक इज बिहाइंड अस, बट वी स्टील हॅव अ लॉट ऑफ केसेस इन द कम्युनिटी. सो पीपल जस्ट नीड टू बी व्हेरी केअरफुल ऑफ दॅट.
आय थिंक दॅट्स अ व्हेरी गुड पॉईंट आणि हा खूप महत्त्वाचा मुद्दा आहे की वी कांट लेट अवर गार्ड्स डाऊन. ज्याला आपण म्हणतो ना, आपलं कवच आहे, ती कवचाची सगळी सामान आहे. कारण कम्युनिटीमध्ये पण आपल्या बऱ्याच लोकांना आत्ता झालेलं आहे, ओळखीच्या लोकांपैकी झालेलं आहे. त्यामुळे गॅदरिंग जितकं टाळता येईल तेवढी टाळा. पण याचा अर्थ असा नाही की तुमचं दैनंदिन जीवन तुम्ही चालू ठेवू शकत नाही किंवा सुरळीत ठेवू शकत नाही. प्रिकॉशन्स फॉलो करून तुम्ही ठेवू शकता.
डेफिनेटली.
दॅट वॉज अबाउट ओमिक्रॉन, विच इज आय थिंक इज अ पार्ट ऑफ लाईफ सारखं आपल्याला झालेलं आहे. आता आपण त्याच्याबरोबरच जगायला सवंगडी झाल्या आपल्या, तो त्याच्याबरोबर आपण जगायला शिकलेलो आहोत. लेट अस नाव मूव्ह ऑन टू द टॉपिक ऑफ द डे, दी CCCFA. इट्स अ माउथफुल, म्हणजे क्रेडिट अँड कंट्रोल फायनान्स ॲक्ट जो आहे, त्याच्यामध्ये सर्वात मोठा महत्त्वाचा बदल या फायनान्शियल इयर म्हणजे मागच्या वर्षी लेट नोव्हेंबरपासून तो इम्प्लिमेंट करण्यात आलेला आणि त्याचा इम्पॅक्ट खूप लोकांना मॉर्गेजवरती किंवा जे बॉरोअर्स होते, शॉर्ट टर्म बॉरोअर, लॉंग टर्म बॉरोअर्स, या सगळ्यांवरच झालेला आहे. तर आज आपल्यासोबत स्टुडिओमध्ये फायनान्स एक्सपर्ट्सचे श्री महेश अमृते आलेले आहेत. महेश इज इंडस्ट्री विझर्ड. बेसिकली गेली 18 वर्ष वेरियस बँकिंग इन्स्टिट्यूट्समध्ये त्यांनी काम केलेलं आहे. एक्झॅक्टली इन टू दीज लाईन्स. वेलकम महेश
नमस्कार.
ऑन
Thank you.
द स्टुडिओ. आणि इट्स आमचं प्लेजर आहे की समबडी हू इज बीन वर्किंग इन द इंडस्ट्री अँड हॅज बीन ऑन द अदर साइड ऑफ द बँक. सो बँक काय विचार करतं लेंडिंग करताना याच्याबद्दल पण आत्म माहिती असलेला Mahesh is going to be with us today to talk about the act. Uh, Welcome, Mahesh.
Thank you, Prashant. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to have this conversation with you guys. Just to have a quick brief on what you just said to me is the Omicron is the big talk happening around the world, as of course in this part of the world too, which is impacting so many small businesses and so many employees as well because they don't have a staff. Now you said while beginning the talk about saying the chat, it's a quite a chatty thingy that people do talk about. So please be sure that when you go and eat a chat outside, you should tell the bank that you ate that chat on that day. That's how they're peculiar about picking stuff. Now, when I said that, is कसं झालं हल्ली, because as you said it correctly, Credit Contract and Consumer Finance Act, which is always been there since 2003, but they had made some modification in the October 2021. Implementation was being placed on from 1st of December. Now, technically, why that act was introduced is to vulnerable the customers असतात त्यांना they avoid going to the loan shark, and they should be faced by the mainstream banks or the financial companies to help them out to achieve what they need to achieve. But things have gone sort of beyond that thing. The bank started picking up on every small thing that they look into, such as how many times that you've been to a cafe, whether you've been shopping a lot. I mean, yes, these factors are always important because when you come from a banking world, that's what we also look for. The trend that we call in the banking terminology, whereby if you earn $10 and if you're spending 12, that means obviously things are not doing in your favor. So how can I help you? Then I need to educate a customer by saying that if you're going to earn $10, make sure you save at least some and spend some. So whereas then it's a balance of both. But if I started questioning him, saying, why did you go three times and had a coffee? But as long as managing well within his parameters, then the bank should find the ways and say that, okay, this boy is able to pay his rent, still go and have a coffee and still save the money. So he seems to be a good customer, right? But these days, the bank goes by checking everything, whether he's going to Bunnings, shopping online, how often you watch movies, everything they would have. And bank has software where they will run past through your statements, and they have around 26 to 28 categories of spendings, whereby they will say food so much, clothing so much, entertainment so much. There's so many parameters they will take into account. Though you will say I've averagely spent around say $1,000 a month for a food, but because you have like in a Christmas holiday period or maybe school holiday period, you tend to go out and spend the money. So obviously the bank's trying to pick on saying that hey, because triple CFA allows us to sort of explain you saying that because you're spending so much of money, you cannot borrow that what you always wanted to buy. So obviously, if you don't get approval for you to borrow that much of money, you're impacting on what you can borrow and what you can buy.
महेश, अ क्विक क्वेश्चन ऑन दिस वन.
Mhm.
हा काही आजचा प्रकार नाहीये. म्हणजे बँक
नाहीये.
बेसिकली बँक तुमच्या स्पेंडिंग हॅबिट्स किंवा जे ॲव्हरेज पूर्वी ते सॉफ्टवेअर
बरोबर.
पहिल्यापासून त्यांच्याकडे होतं.
बरोबर आहे.
इमटेरियल ऑफ व्हॉट यू से, की तुम्हाला 2 मुलं आहेत म्हटल्यानंतर तुम्ही म्हणाला, की नाही मी बाबा मुलांवरती $150 आठवड्याला खर्च करतो. द बँक
बरोबर आहे.
यूज्ड टू से नो, नो, नो. आवर कॅल्क्युलेशन इज $250, सो वी विल
बरोबर आहे.
पुट अ फिगर ऑफ $250 वगैरे. हे पूर्वी
बरोबर आहे.
पूर्वी करायचेच. म्हणजे असंही नव्हतं,
आधी
की
करायचं नव्हतं. नाही.
नवीन आलेलं आहे असं नाहीये त्याच्यामध्ये.
हं. नाही.
महत्वाचं काय, की आज हॅज द बँक स्टार्टेड लुकिंग ॲट द स्पेंड इन अ डिफरंट मॅनर इन टर्म्स ऑफ युअर डेट रेशियो, और इज इट दे आर लुकिंग ॲट इट प्युअरली की हा तुमचा डेली एक्सपेन्सेस आहे म्हणून?
Okay, good question, Prashant. In that sense, what can I add in here? की कसं व्हायचं आधी की averagely say you spend around, as you said it correctly, की 150 we spend on a child, right? But a bank will say we have a threshold of 250, so we will use that as a threshold, for example, right? आता ते काय म्हणतात की 250 आमचा जरी थ्रेशोल्ड असला तरी वी विल गो थ्रू युअर बँक स्टेटमेंट. तू भले 150 मला बोललेला असशील, आमचा थ्रेशोल्ड 250 जर असेल, पण तुझ्या बँक स्टेटमेंटने जर सांगितलं असेल यू टेकिंग टू फॉर एक्झाम्पल फॉर हॉलिडे
नॅपीज
वरती तू जातोय, कुठे
नॅपीजवर
काय स्पेंड
घेतलं.
करतो. हा एक्झॅक्टली. तर तू ते 350 असतील तर बँक विल टेक 350 एज युअर एक्सपेन्सेस. देन 250 नाही, 150 पण नाही. as we tend to do what, okay, averagely how much we spend on
Hmm.
doing this is around $150 or $200, right? So those kind of expenses we will factor in when we are budgeting, most
Hmm.
of us. But bank will say, no, 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 we will go by actual how much you spend in last 3 months.
Oh, 90 days is very critical
What
over
is
here.
the window
Right.
period that they have? And you have correctly touched base, which is how much time that the bank would take. Each bank would have their own ratios, that how they calculate the income versus the spending and how much you could borrow that. So some banks would have 6 times. The thumb rule is, there's no thumb rule as said, but average they will say if you make 100,000, the max you should be able to borrow is 6 times. Some bank will allow 7 times, some bank will allow bit lower or bit higher. It again, that takes into account all your debts, including your
Right.
credit cards, your personal loan. Also, if you say, for example, you have a credit card limit of 10,000, of course they will go by how you spend the money on your card and so on. But at the same time, they will take minimum of 3.5% of your credit card as your fixed financial commitment, and the
Right.
30,000 becomes a part of that 6 time that you could borrow from the bank. So तुला
Oh,
6 लाखाचं लोन मिळणार असेल तर 6 लाख less 30,000, because
Hmm.
you already had that as 30,000 as credit.
right.
Hmm.
So, okay. So, म्हणजे आता basically your debt they calculate as credit card is also a debt which you have whether you have borrowed or not, but it's you already used up your
Absolutely right. Yeah,
capacity to debt त्याच्यामध्ये. So,
absolutely right.
so that six
So
times figure is technically the maximum limit of debt that you can take on, is what they
absolutely
mean.
right.
Okay.
Absolutely right. And कसं असतं, one rule doesn't fit all.
Hmm.
Again, this is not a advice that I give, but I always recommend my client who comes and sit down, we go through a acknowledgement declaration that what I do and what is my advice, what are my limitations and so on. त्यावेळेला मी एक काय सांगतो, try and save, try and spend less and be good with your money. In that sense, good with your money म्हणजे काय की people get tempted, like, oh, I want to go and buy this holiday sale laglay, ugas he घेतलं. Don't just get into a debt that you don't have to.
Hmm.
The house debt is obviously where people always aspire to buy ki apna ek ghar ho, right? So when, especially when you leave your own motherland and come all the way इकडे, प्रत्येकाचं एक ड्रीम असतं की यार अपना एक तो घर व्हायलाच पाहिजे, you know. So how to plan that? There is a way that you can execute if you plan it well. And I've been, as you said it correctly, been doing since 2002, work with two banks, major banks, and help I don't know how many customers to achieve their dream come true of buying first or a second home or build a portfolio as well.
Oh, fantastic. Might just a little move into away from the individual part of it to the
Mm-hmm.
market side of it.
Mm-hmm.
ह्याचा इम्पॅक्ट मार्केटवरती कितपत झालेला आहे? म्हणजे मार्केट आतापर्यंत म्हणजे इन्व्हेस्टर फ्रॉम अन इन्व्हेस्टर पॉइंट ऑफ व्ह्यू आणि फ्रॉम द जनरल मार्केट फर्स्ट टाइम बायर असेल तर लेट्स टेक दोज टू कॅटेगरीज फर्स्ट.
Okay, कसं झालं की आधी, I'm sure you guys must have heard on की around 2.5-3 months banks pulled out all the pre-approvals above 80% benchmark, means that 80% च्या वरती RBI NZ, which is the Reserve Bank of NZ, have set a specific guideline that how much bank could lend against their book value as such. So hence what has happened is that the bank has sort of called their customers saying that though you had this pre-approval being done, because of this rule change, we can't honor your pre-approvals if you are being borrowing above 80% mark. So those customers who are buying an existing house who don't have too much of deposit have almost sort of dried out, right? Because they did not have the approval from the bank. They can't save more money to get onto those things. So those people have said, okay, now they have to get into something called a newly built house. Newly built house means they will be the first owner of the property, right? And then the bank said, okay, we can still lend because that is obviously exempted from the RBNZ guideline. In that sense, uh, bank could still go up to that benchmark. But again, they have set so many parameters to say that how they can approve those loans as well, when the property has to be ready, because these days property might take even 12 months or maybe longer than 12 months as well. So the bank might come back and say, no, no, we can't do your pre-approval for that long, because every pre-approval has its own expiry date, which means that every after 3 months you need to renew your pre-approvals. You have to meet the bank's obligations of your financial commitments and your personal and financial commitment as well. So you got to keep that in track. And answering your question, that has obviously impacted the first home buyer big time. The investor, because of what tax regime has been introduced by the government, has impacted that as well. So there are so many factors has really driven the market the way it is now. The one I would say is triple CFA, obviously. Second is your taxation that is being put in place. The third thing you could say, because of the interest rate from 2.29 gone up to almost 4%. So which means on an average loan of $1 million, you're talking about increase of around 1.5 to 2%, which is around 20,000 net. Has our salaries gone up that high? Definitely not. So hence, these are the various factors have really what people say slowed down or come to sort of in a standstill sort of thing for people to borrow the money.
I mean, this is a statistics which Equifax has published. Every month
Yeah.
they publish
Hmm.
into that one, which
Yeah.
is consumer open accounts. Index consumer
Hmm.
open accounts,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
you look at the home loan drop from
Hmm.
120 in November
Yeah.
right down to around 50.
Yeah.
That's a huge drop.
Huge drop.
If you look at it, I mean, it is obvious, but that huge drop, तर त्याचा
Yeah.
मार्केटवरती प्राइस वरती किती इम्पॅक्ट होणार आहे त्याच्या
So
हाऊसिंगच्या.
price worthy because it's always a demand and supply rules apply here, right? If the demand is still high, like obviously they can still have the good
हम्म.
price range. I have so many theories that I personally explain to my client, which of course I can't tell you on record here. Which means that if you buy at the peak and sell at when it's not that peak, obviously you will lose the money. But when you buy
Uh,
when it's not peak, and when you sell when it's at peak, you'll obviously make the
make
money. So that's how I guess people can sort of take it from there. But if you are in a situation where you have to sell, no matter whether you have lost your job or somebody has passed away in your home or there's a separation in your family, and then you would sort of desperate to sell, you would not care about whether it's peak or it's low or it's mid, right? You will still offload what you have, and then what price you will get will determine how desperate you are to sell the house.
mm,
So again, that's an individual will play a vital role in terms of where do you stand in that sense to say whether it will come down or not. But on an average, properties are still getting sold. They've been getting the money what you would get, because I've seen in 2007, 8 when there was GFC as well,
mm.
and it was a plateau for a quite a number of years, and then it tipped down a bit, and then again had its own peak wherever it's gone. But has anybody thought property prices would go that high? I'm pretty sure, hand on heart, none of
No,
us, right? And
yeah,
as we know, the rates should come in tomorrow, I guess, tomorrow or
mm.
day after. Council was
Thursday,
going to
yeah.
put the rates
Mm.
exactly. So, which means that all of us going to feel, wow, my property is worth X value, but hey
You-
guys, you need to pay the rates on it. Excuse me. I
exactly.
mean, that's just the book value, So it's going to be very interesting to see how does the market react after the valuation comes in place.
Great. Preeti, you are the next gen rep. तुझा काय प्रश्न असेल याच्यावरती महेशला?
I think one of the there was actually several questions within that, but I'll touch on maybe like two or three of them. So one
Sure.
of the ones being primarily की तुम्ही starting जेला जेव्हा आपण बोलत होतो तुम्ही budgeting बद्दल बोलत होता, and you were saying that 3 months 90 days period is what the bank looks at.
Hmm.
So I guess that one of the things would be from my end ki uh, right now, like within the younger generation as such, there is a lot of speculation ki acha mala first home atta घ्यायचं नाहीये. I don't want to, the prices are rising too much, or
Hmm.
this is outside my scope of म्हणजे माझ्याकडे एवढे पैसे नाही आहेत की मी हे घेऊ शकते. म्हणजे there are
Hmm.
obviously different points of view there. There are
Hmm.
couples who do choose to invest and who do choose to buy their own first home as well. So I
बरोबर
guess
आहे.
फ्रॉम माय पर्स्पेक्टिव्ह, मी असं जे अशी लोक पण विचार करणारी असतील त्यांना पण तुमचं रेकमेंडेशन एज सच काय असेल की लाईक वुड इट बी की फोकस ऑन लाईक मॅनेज युअर बजेटिंग इन अ वे वेर यू नो that you are in a strong enough position to buy your own property, that is something that you want.
Okay, good one asked, because even my kids of maybe your age, I guess, and what happens is that every child has its own ways of seeing life, and
Yeah.
some people will be driven so much saying that, no, I want to buy the house by the time I turn 27, 28. I helped somebody who's as young as 22 to get into his first home, like, and for me is to, as long as you have a clear path that what you want to achieve, I can't sort of say, hey, you need to buy a house. It's purely up to you. If you
Yeah.
this is what you want to do, then I can help you to achieve.
Mm.
How do we plan? And when you said about the banks is 3 months, it's just not the question of seeing it for 3 months or 4 months or 5 months. It is your behavior. How do you tend to save the money? How do you
Mm.
conduct in your account? People just try and spend for the sake of spending because they are मैं कमा रहा हूँ, मैं खर्च कर रहा हूँ, अपना पैसा है, so it's all comes down to you. You watch your background. How do you see your life at as well? Because if you said to me and said, Mahesh, I'm this age now, I don't see me saving the money. I don't
Yeah.
see buying the house. Tell me how you're going to help me out, right? So obviously, by God's grace, we have something called Kiwi Saver. So which obviously you would have saved by the time you go to X age. So if you plan ahead in terms of, okay, you and your partner saving X amount every fortnightly, trying to get to the stage where I want to achieve what I need to achieve, rather than, okay, you should buy the house. Really, I mean, you need to plan your own destiny. Not nobody can actually force you to do what you have to do. Hmm.
Yeah.
Hope that
Yeah.
helps.
Definitely. No, that definitely does. And हे म्हणजे मला असं वाटतं की आपल्या सगळ्यांना माहिती असतं की म्हणजे तुम्ही तुमचं प्लॅनिंग कसं करायला पाहिजे,
कसं
बट देर आर
करायला
ऑब्विसली
पाहिजे.
दोज मोमेंट्स ऑफ मोमेंट्स ऑफ वीकनेसेस वे यू हॅव जसं तुम्ही म्हणालात आता की अरे मी कमवतोय तर म्हणजे मी का नाही खर्च करायचा, असं पण माइंडसेट असतं. तर तुमच्या प्रायोरिटीज वरती असतं की तुम्हाला घर आता
Right.
घ्यायचंय की 5 वर्षांनी घ्यायचंय की 7 वर्षांनी घ्यायचंय. दॅट्स ऑब्विसली अनदर
See,
थिंग दॅट
because at the end of
इंडिव्हिज्युअल
the day,
चॉईस.
कसं असतं की you paying someone else mortgage technically, right? So
या.
मी समजा 600-700 weekly जर रेंट भरत असेल, तर आय एम ऍक्च्युअली हेल्पिंग दॅट पर्सन टू पे ऑफ हिज लोन, राईट? सो आय हॅव टू मेक दॅट चॉईस. Do I do that, or do I secure my future? कि okay, अपना एक घर हो, because you have left your own land and come here to sort of, maybe not to prove yourself, but at least achieve something and said, yes, I've achieved my job, got my partner, set up my things. Now what's next? If I intend to stay in this part of the world, then do I need to buy a house, or do I have to keep on renting till I'm age of 65?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Uh,
and I think, oh, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Preeti, a quick question onto this one, an offshoot of this one. Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, this question always is a dilemma for a lot of people. बऱ्याच लोकांना हा प्रश्न असतो की बाईंग और रेंटिंग त्याच्यामध्ये, आणि तुम्हालाच तसं की त्याच्यामध्ये की प्रत्येकाचं की तू दुसऱ्याचं मॉर्गेज भरतोय म्हणून. दिस इज अ वे ऑफ लुकिंग ॲट थिंग्स. जर आपण इफ यू टेक दॅट अवे, आणि जर आपण असं म्हटलं की जर आज टेलिफोनची लाईन, आपण टेलिफोनची पूर्वीचं म्हणजे आता मोबाईल आहे ते सोडून द्या, पण इव्हन टेलिफोन लाईन पूर्वी वी यूज टू पे अ फिक्स रेंट. बाबा $45 भरले की आज मोबाईल सुद्धा सर्व्हिस, मोबाईल तुमच्याकडे तुम्ही $50 भरतात. इट डझंट मॅटर हाऊ मच यू यूज ऑर नॉट, it's as a service म्हणून धरला. Would the concept of rent as a service ever come into the mind?
Okay, good one, Prashant. Like, at the end of the day, you stay, whereas you can have a phone, you can change your phone, right? You can
Yeah.
put a phone in the bin. You need a house to stay. You can live without a phone. I mean, I know it's very hard to say, but technically you can live without the phone as well, but you can't stay ki mera ghar na ho, I don't care, right? You have to have a house. That's a basic thing that one should have. So at the end of the day, you have to make that choice and say that, do I need to have a house? Now when I said ki, what is in a perfect path of getting into a property ownership, like, I sort of educate somebody who's like, I don't want to buy here, it's too hard to save. Then I said, okay, right now you spend around such a week in a rent, okay, and you and husband wife or partners earns around X amount of money. Where do you spend? Sit down on an Excel sheet, how much I get in, माझ्याकडे किती येतात आणि मी कुठे कुठे स्पेंड करतो, right? In short, you will find out कि यार मैं so much of where I actually waste my money. So how can I sort of how can I put that into a channel where I can own a house? it needs to come within that. I
करेक्ट.
want to own a house, right?
हं.
Nobody can sort of की यार घोड्याला म्हणतो ना आपण पाणी तू फोर्स नाही करू शकत बाबा हे पी
घेऊ
पाणी.
शकतो प्यायला
That's
पण
exactly आपण that's all what we can do.
राइट. फेअर एनफ. प्रीती, योर्स. सॉरी.
मला तर असं वाटतं की अर्धे अर्धे पैसे तर सगळे नेटफ्लिक्स आणि अमेझॉन सबस्क्रिप्शन मध्येच जातात.
Exactly. And the bank even take that into account as well, ki, to say ki, where do you spend the money?
Exactly.
The worst thing people don't realize that they use their credit card to draw the cash out. And that's a big time
Oh wow.
no. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because people said, okay, I just have to pay 2.5%, but that 2.5% bank says it ki, like that means that you don't have the money and you're desperate to use banks' money and spend. So that's how they will be able to see it as well. So try and save. If you wanted to buy a house, I would say try and save, minimize your expenses, have a dream, have a goal. Say one day I should own the house. If
Yeah.
that's what you want to do,
I guess I have one last question for you, which
go
is की
for it.
आता आपण बघतोय की OCR rate वाढत चाललाय. We know, like banks have predicted that it's going to go up till at least till November. त्याच्यामुळे interest rate पण वाढत जाणार आहे. So how long do you see this cycle, if I can call it that, this cycle ongoing? कारण की rates तर now with the news reports that we've read, like housing prices चे rates थोडे stable झाले, but obviously not as much as we expected to be. So what are your I don't like to use the word predictions, but I can say predictions for like the say end of 2020 पर्यंत आपण काय बघू शकतो?
We are in 2022 now.
2020.
See, yeah, what has happened is that, as you correctly said, आणि मी आधीच असं बोललो की जे ॲव्हरेज लोन समजा 1 million जरी असेल आणि जर तुम्ही लोन फिक्स असेल 2.29 ला, and the rates have gone up to 4.29, means you've gone up by 2% net. Okay, त्याच्यामध्ये व्याजाचा दर जर तुम्ही 1 million जरी घेतला 2%, you're talking about $20,000 per annum, 400 a week roughly, right? And
Yeah.
your salaries have not gone that high up. Okay, so hence you need to plan it ahead, save the money, minimize your expenses. Now talking about the OCR and the rate changes, now people who has stayed here for many years, we have come in since 2001, and I have seen the rates gone up to 9.99% at one stage and came as
wow.
low as 2.19 or 2.29. So you can see the variance of the rates gone up and down. But has people stopped buying when the rate was that high? Still, people bought the houses. Of course, the houses price was relatively very low
Yeah.
than that rate, of course. And as we speak now, the prices is Auckland. What they say is 1 million plus. Everywhere you
Average.
go, that's what you get, right? So at the end of the day, rates going up, would that impact the market? Yes and no, because obviously it will come down to say how many buyers wanted to get onto that first home, or how many buyers who wanted to get into the property market
Yeah.
investment has been. But obviously this country is driven by people who aspire to buy houses and grow their wealth, as we see.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Thank you.
All my
Thank you for
pleasure.
your input. I think both of us found it quite interesting. आणि आपले जे मराठी मिसळला लोक जे ट्यून इन झाले असतील त्यांना पण खूप 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 नॉलेज मिळालं तुमच्याकडनं. थँक्यू सो मच.
My pleasure. Thank you.
थँक्स महेश. इट वॉज अ प्लेजर हॅव्हिंग यू ऑन बोर्ड विथ अस. आज ज्याला आपण म्हणतो मनी मॅनेजमेंट आणि ॲस्पिरेशन्स या दोन गोष्टींकडे बारकाईनं जरा लक्ष देण्यासाठी जरुरी होती. कारण आता काळ कठीण आहे, कारण इन्फ्लेशन सुद्धा पुढच्या काळामध्ये वाढणार आहे. त्यामुळे
True.
दॅट इज अनदर इम्पॅक्ट मोठा. प्लस यू डोंट नो द वॉर वेअर इट इज गोइंग टू बी टेकिंग इट. त्याचा
Exactly.
इम्पॅक्ट अजून वेगळा काय होणार आहे तर आपल्याला माहिती नाही. त्यामुळे थँक्स फॉर स्पेंडिंग युअर टाइम विथ अस. आय नो हाफ एन आवर समटाइम्स इज व्हेरी डिफिकल्ट एवढ्या मोठ्या टॉपिकला आपण स्क्वीज करणं, बट इट वॉज अ प्लेजर हॅव्हिंग यू ऑन बोर्ड. थँक्यू सो मच.
Likewise, very much likewise. Thank you once again, Indian Weekender, for giving me this opportunity to have this conversation with you. As I said, there isn't anything bad to own a house. It's always good to have. We have left our own land and come down here. We need to work hard to see how we can make that worth and have our own apna gharo at the end of the day.
थँक्यू. तर मंडळी, आजचा कार्यक्रम आम्ही इथेच संपवणार आहोत. पुन्हा भेटूया पुढील सोमवारी संध्याकाळी 7:30 वाजता मराठी मिसळच्या अजून एका कार्यक्रमामध्ये. तोपर्यंत धन्यवाद. स्टे सेफ.